Hello and welcome to KennyRoy.com. I'm Kenny Roy. This is the Ask Video Mail for the week of August 6, 2012. It's SIGGRAPH week, and I am at SIGGRAPH right now as we speak, enjoying everything. I'm hopefully going to be able to post some photos and videos of my time there. It's going to be very exciting, and I'll update you as much as I can throughout the week with all that stuff. The Ask Video Mail is your chance to get your question in character animation or performance answered in a video like this one, but please send me your questions to webmaster@kennyroy.com. I go through all the questions and I answer the ones that I think will help the most people. There's no such thing as a stupid question, and of course it's the best way to get the most out of the site. So, like I said, I'm at SIGGRAPH, and I'll try to keep you guys totally up to date with what I'm doing there with photos and videos on KennyRoy.com. Also, please just follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and you can get some updates that way as well. If you are going to SIGGRAPH, I am giving a talk at the Autodesk booth right up in front of the exhibition hall on Tuesday at 2 o'clock and Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. And just come by and check it out. I'm also showing some exclusive world premiere, never before seen and never to be displayed anywhere else footage from The Little Painter. It's a look dev scene and an animation style scene that I'm going to be sending to animators to show them exactly how Pierre is supposed to move and the style of the film. So if you're at SIGGRAPH, hopefully you can check out my talk at the Autodesk booth and just get that awesome preview of the film. So let's jump right into the Ask question. It's a seemingly simple one, but there's some interesting considerations to make while you're thinking about this question. So let's take a look. Very good question. Thank you for sending that one in. So head and neck controls, just very, very simply, normally you get a head and neck control, but they're kind of deceiving because we move our heads almost as one thing. The neck and the head, like as humans, when we bend over, we bend the neck and the head. You know, even if you're trying to keep your shoulders completely straight, we don't just rotate the head, right? That if you want to crack your neck, see if I can. No. I already cracked it a minute ago. But even if you want to crack your neck, you still are bending your neck a little bit, even when you're trying to isolate your head. You can translate your head around, and if you have an IK head, that's basically what you're doing. But it amounts to counter-animating your head and your neck, right? Because your head is bending, is leaning over, basically mine is leaning over to my left, and my neck is rotating to the right, right? If you do something like this. It's a lot easier if you look at this, right? So the neck is moving forward, but relative to the neck, the head is leaning back, right? This is both of them bending forward, both of them bending back. So when you get controls, you got to test what they're doing. I hate IK heads for the reason that if you want it to look like natural, it's great if you have like a creature that moves like this, like a chicken or a dinosaur, but for like humans, I hate IK heads because it amounts to having to counter animate everything in order to get a good rotation. So it's translating it down here and rotating it to get that correct orientation. So I always do FK necks and heads if I can, and I always, depending on how the control looks, sometimes that neck control is very, 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 limited control, and if you have head isolation as well, it kind of turns the head into an IK head that is controlled, that is like basically controlled by rotations in the neck. Bishop has this in Animation Mentor. Most modern rigs have head isolation, which basically turns them into an IK head when using just the neck control. Any control below the neck as well. So if you're rotating your chest, the head normally can stay isolated. So for normal performance acting work, I turn off all those isolations and I pose my head and neck at the same time. So I grab both controls and I put keys on both controls almost at all times. This is where Maya's animation layers comes in handy a lot, because you can add overlap on top of that animation pretty easily by adding the neck and head to a new layer, animation layer rather, and just layering in the overlap and not having to worry about screwing up or adding gimbal to your head and neck keys. In large films like King Kong, where you have creatures that have really long necks, this issue becomes it becomes like almost unmanageable. It gets really, really crazy. So with those kinds of controls, like the Brontosaurus in King Kong had 19 controls, FK controls in his neck, and I think 4 or 5 IK controls that you could use instead, or as well. So with that many controls, things get out of hand kind of quickly. So what we had to do was take a very, very, very kind of careful pose to pose, and then very, very slightly offset those controls to get a little bit of overlap. Okay? But what we couldn't do is animate straight ahead with that many controls and kind of get, really get anywhere. So if you start thinking about the head and neck as, I point to my neck, the neck and head as kind of a 2-joint tail, then you can get a little bit of a, I feel like it's a better way to start thinking about the end of the spine on this side, because what you do is, instead of having this idea in your head that you're making a pose and that the neck is somehow like contributing in a disconnected or a kind of like supplemental way to the entire pose. If you think if you think about it instead as like, this is like 2 joints that are in an FK chain, almost like a tail, then you'll notice why you take a pose to pose method, and then only if you have kind of some physical moments that are pretty big and whatever, you can go back through and very carefully offset those and put in overlap and those kinds of things. So in general, to answer the question directly, it's not like you use one or the other. And if you are doing a lot of translating on the head, I would suggest probably shy away more from that IK head and just go straight up FK. Of course, there's moments when that IK head or that FK head with isolation will work better for you, of course. But I just find that if you think about really the entire spine as kind of centered in those hips, but think about kind of like these like 6 controls, hips, lower torso, mid torso, chest, shoulders, neck, and head, kind of more as a tail kind of as well. You'll start feeling a little bit more in control of the posing of that whole thing. Because from the question, it kind of sounds like the problem is you're posing the character all up into what you want, and then you're kind of like your character's doing a whole lot of this, and you're like, how do I get that? How do I get rid of that? I think the IK issue and the isolation issue is going to help you a lot, but also when you're creating this entire pose, always pose the neck and head together. And if there's this big moment, then sure, you can offset the head a little bit to do its action. Okay, so think about that. Great question. Please send me more questions. I love to answer them. Keep an eye in here on KennyRoy.com for some SIGGRAPH updates. I hope to update you guys as much as I can. Come to my talks Tuesday and Wednesday, 2 and 2:30 p.m. respectively. Send your questions to webmaster@KennyRoy.com. I promise I read every single question. I answer the ones that I think will help the most people. And you can send me my files. I love to open my files on this site. I hope you're having a lot of fun. See you at SIGGRAPH. Good luck with your animation. And as always, rock on.